That escalated quickly. Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Today we're going to talk about what happens when you live on nothing but TikTok food for 3 whole days. In case you can't already tell, I am absolutely obsessed with all things food. And this summer, I saw a major opportunity to take my culinary skills to the next level. What better way to do that than following every single food trend the internet has to offer? Well, I stopped there. Let's be honest, scrolling through TikTok, trying new recipes, making lots of mistakes, learning from those mistakes. That's basically my life. But that didn't seem like enough. So I gave myself a little challenge. Live exclusively off TikTok food for 3 whole days. The catch, I could only choose viral recipes. You know, the ones that have over 1 million views and at least 100,000 likes. And no, that does not include dancing cat videos. But before we get into the disaster that ensued, I just want to say one very important thing. As fun as these challenges are, they should not be taken seriously. Okay, and 2, do not try anything featured in this video unless you want to risk setting your kitchen on fire. Got it? Get it? Good. Let's take a look at what happened. Day 1, the viral baked feta pasta. To kick things off, I decided to try something light and fresh. After all, it was a hot summer day, and the last thing I wanted to do was spend hours in the kitchen sweating like an Italian grandma. So I turned to the wonderful world of TikTok and searched for the perfect summer dish. And that's when I stumbled upon this viral baked feta pasta. All I needed was feta cheese, cherry tomatoes, garlic, oregano, and penne pasta. Super easy, right? And I must admit, the dish looked absolutely divine. Creamy, cheesy, sun-dried, tomatoey goodness. My mouth was watering just thinking about it. Plus, the recipe had over 5 million views and almost 800,000 likes. How could I go wrong? Now, while I may not be a professional chef, I do consider myself a bit of a foodie. I've watched enough YouTube tutorials to know my way around the kitchen, so I felt pretty confident as I chopped the tomatoes, minced the garlic, and sprinkled the oregano. But it was when I added the feta cheese that my confidence started to waver. I mean, I've never cooked with feta before. What if it didn't melt properly? What if the sauce was too thick or too thin? My mind was racing with all sorts of worst-case scenarios. However, I pushed on, determined to create a culinary masterpiece. I tossed the pasta, added the sauce, and covered it with more feta cheese. Then I popped it into the oven and waited patiently. The timer seemed to tick by in slow motion, and the anticipation was killing me. Finally, the dish was ready. I pulled it out of the oven and presented it to myself with a flourish. Taking a deep breath, I was ready to dig in. The first bite was like an explosion of flavor. The creamy, cheesy sauce, the juicy tomatoes, and the perfectly cooked pasta all came together in a symphony of deliciousness. It was everything I had dreamed of and more. I devoured the dish in minutes, feeling like a true foodie who had just conquered Mount Everest. But wait, there's more. The next morning I woke up feeling refreshed and ready to tackle another viral TikTok recipe, but this time I needed something a little different. Something that would push my culinary boundaries and really show off my mad skills in the kitchen. And that's when I saw it, the 2-ingredient tortilla hack. This recipe had over 2 million views and 350,000 likes, so I knew it had to be good. The concept was simple. All I needed was a flour tortilla and some ranch dressing to dip it in. Sounds simple, right? Well, that's where my trouble began. You see, I've never been the biggest fan of ranch dressing. Don't hate me. I know it's a sin in some circles, but I just can't bring myself to love that creamy, sometimes slightly chunky monstrosity. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's good in its place. Like if you're in the middle of nowhere and you find yourself surrounded by mosquitoes, then by all means, douse yourself in ranch and become mosquito bait. But in the kitchen, I draw the line. Anyway, despite my reservations about the recipe, I decided to give it a try. I tore the tortilla into bite-sized pieces and dipped them into the ranch, and to my surprise, it was actually pretty good. The tortilla chips were crispy and the ranch provided the perfect amount of tang. I found myself dipping and eating tortilla chips faster than I could make them. Before I knew it, the entire bag of tortillas had vanished. Who knew ranch dressing could be so versatile? I guess anything can be a tortilla chip if you try hard enough. So there you have it. In just 2 days, I had conquered 2 viral TikTok recipes, and my culinary confidence was through the roof. But I wasn't done yet. Oh no, not by a long shot. There was still one more recipe I had to try, the one that had been haunting my dreams, the viral microwave mug cake. Now I'm a big fan of dessert. I mean, who isn't? But I'm not gonna lie, baking has never been my strong suit. I've made my share of culinary masterpieces, sure, but they often resemble something else more closely than actual food. So when I saw this recipe for a microwave mug cake, I thought, hey, why not give it a try? I mean, it's just a simple cake in a mug, right? How hard can it be? Well, as it turns out, harder than I expected. See, I'm not one to follow recipes exactly. No, I like to freestyle. I like to improvise. I like to add a little pizzazz. So when the recipe called for basic ingredients like flour and sugar, I decided to mix things up a bit. I added some cocoa powder for extra flavor, some baking soda for a little fluffiness, and a pinch of salt because, well, you gotta have some salt in your life, right? I mixed everything together with the precision of a seasoned baker, poured the batter into a mug and microwaved it for the recommended 60 seconds. Then I waited patiently as the cake rose to power. Okay, maybe I was being a little sarcastic. You see, while waiting for the cake to cook, I got distracted by something very important, figuring out what kind of toppings I wanted. Because a cake is only as good as its toppings, right? I considered chocolate sauce, whipped cream, even sprinkles. But ultimately, I decided to keep things simple with just some plain old frosting. I mean, why go fancy when classic works, right? Well, when the timer dinged and I pulled the mug out of the microwave, I was greeted by the sight that would change my life forever. The cake had risen so high that it had completely overflowed the mug, and I mean completely. It was like one of those cheesy volcano eruption videos, except instead of lava, it was batter. And instead of a volcano, it was a freaking mug. I stared at the cake in disbelief as it oozed and bubbled before my very eyes. And then I did the only logical thing I could think of. I ran to grab a bigger mug. Now you might be wondering, why didn't I just use a bigger mug in the first place? Well, I'll tell you why. Because in my mind, the bigger the mug, the longer the cooking time, and the more likely it was to explode. Yeah, I know it's not the best logic, but hey, it's the logic that kept me alive. So with the new and improved mug in hand, I microwaved the cake again, this time for only 30 seconds. And when I pulled it out, voila, perfection. A perfectly cooked mug cake, free of any exploding batter. I carefully spread the frosting on top and prepared to enjoy the fruits of my labor. The first bite was like a burst of pure joy in my mouth. The cake was moist, fluffy, and oh, so delicious. It tasted like heaven, and I ate it like I was starving. I mean, who cares if the cake had exploded all over my kitchen? This was a moment of pure bliss, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. And that, my friends, is what happened when I lived on nothing but viral TikTok recipes for 3 whole days. From the explosion of flavors in the baked feta pasta to the unexpected versatility of ranch dressing and the ultimate mug cake showdown. It was a culinary adventure that I'll never forget. But now I need to hear from you. Which viral recipe should I try next? And should I do it for a full week? Comment below and let me know. Thanks for watching and happy cooking.